Hello once again, and Tony here, and here it is, the moment you've all been waiting for. The final 10 of the top 25 favorite as told by Ginger episodes. At number 10, we have Family Therapy, which has Macy planning for her 13th birthday party, and with Ginger and Dodie going in for the ride. And they're wondering if it sits well with Macy's parents. And Macy says that her parents are way too busy to give her any time because of their jobs as child psychologists. It's not until one fateful day that Macy has a proper sit down with both of her parents, and, well, both of her parents, who are both named Bobby, feel rather guilty of it and has made it up to their daughter by spending a lot of quality time with her, a la sending her to the petting zoos, or having a lot of kiddie trips with her, and going to a lot of these mother-daughter dress-up events, and even going to a Chuck E. Cheese-like restaurant. And even Ginger and Dodie basically feel very sorry for Macy because, well, Macy is gonna be 13, and they're basically treating her like this, like a 5-year-old girl. And even though Macy does like it and really does appreciate what her parents are doing, Ginger and Dodie are rather concerned, especially when Macy has decided that for her birthday party, it's going to be a petting zoo themed type of birthday party, which ties well with the B plot because Carl and Hoodsie have to capture this escaped naked mole rat, which ends up going to Macy's party and manages to scare off Courtney, and Carl and Hoodsie manage to capture it. And then the episode ends in a very heartwarming way with Ginger and Dodie giving a very special present to Macy, stating, "I'm a teenager, that's my problem." And I thought that was the biggest highlight for the episode for me because it really does show that yes, growing up for Macy really is painful and tough, and that she has to face the reality that yeah, she is currently 13, even though she's liked it being like treated like a little kid by her parents because nowadays that she has the time that she can spend with them. It also shows that even at times like this, Macy has to grow up and accept change. And it's also made me understand why Macy is the way she is as a character. At number 9, we have a tie between Far From Home and Dare I Darren. And let's start off with Dare I Darren, as both of these episodes talk about the development of Ginger's and Darren's relationships as friends at first, but then towards the later parts of the series into a sort of boyfriend and girlfriend relationship with each other. Now with Dare I Darren, it starts off with Ginger wondering if there is something between her and Darren that could make them go in a relationship. And they kind of confirm that, okay, the thing about Dr. Fawn feelings about her opinion or her meaning on best friends is that they start off as best friends, but then once they grow up, they end up being couples, which are usually the best category. And then Ginger starts to become a lot more, trying to be a lot more girly and ladylike towards Darren, but Darren kind of feels weirded out by it. And even Ginger feels kind of confused of why Darren treats her differently and why she feels this way too. And the biggest highlight for me was the dream sequence, in which it starts off fine with Darren offering Ginger a ride on his bike. Ginger then floats to the clouds after she sits on Darren's handles, and then after her moment on the clouds, she lands on Ian Richton's bike. She ends up in the school, enters the school building. Miranda opens the door. Ginger says thank you. And then a bright flashing light explodes the screen. And then we see a lot of bright colors with Darren's head in the middle, which I found very surreal and really showed just how gorgeous the animation was in that sequence. And then Miranda arranges a double date between Ginger and Darren and Miranda and Ian. The interesting thing is that Ian Richton was also the original voice of Curly from Hey Arnold. So what do you know, another voice actor that ended up being here on this very awesome show. But he's not the last one, I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen. He ain't the last one. So, Miranda, Ian, Ginger, and Darren end up going to the theater in which they see an action-themed horror film in which this action hero has to fight off this vampiress. The vampiress ends up trying to devour the hero, which makes Ginger terrified and then holds both Darren's and Ian's hands. And then Miranda is left completely aghast. Ginger runs out of the theater and Darren comforts her. And they just laugh it off, saying it was just kind of a silly event that they went through. And then they kind of state that maybe Ginger still has feelings for Ian. They laugh it off. But it's also to hint that this is what their relationship is going to be in the future episodes of As Told by Ginger. And then we move on to the 3-part episode Far From Home, in which Ginger ends up being accepted to this arts academy called the Avalanche Arts Academy. The school and some of her friends throw a despedida for her. And then she ends up there. And then she sees a couple of new friends. One is the tall, handsome, blonde-haired young man, Fred, who was voiced by Torrin Cadell, who was also the first voice of Arnold, and then he later voiced Wolfgang from Hey Arnold, and then was also the voice of King Bob. What'd I tell you? Another voice actor from Hey Arnold who also ended up in this show. And then she also meets Thea, who is this rocker chick-like girl who does a lot of yoga, voiced by Joey Lauren Adams, who is very well known for her role in Married with Children. They hit it off well, though Ginger is still very homesick and still missing her friends. And this basically leads Miranda and Mipsy stating that now that Ginger's out of their lives, they can have Courtney all to themselves. But unfortunately, Courtney still misses Ginger so much. The same thing can be said about Macy and Dodie, and Miranda wants to make sure that Ginger is out of the picture once and for all. So they basically make a phone call stating that Ginger should end up having the scholarship, and Mipsy ends up wiring the money and all those type of things. And we find out that Thea is none other than Mipsy's cousin, given the nickname of Mitzi. The B-plot involves Noelle entering a freak show contest, which is held every winter, with Carl convincing her, and then Hudson ending up as the chaperone. Noelle kisses him so that he can be the adult chaperone, and he talks like a fully grown adult man, well, albeit with a raspy voice. This makes Carl jealous, which makes him also go at odds between his relationship between him and her, which basically is a very interesting B-plot, which also does mesh well as we go on to the later course of this episode. So, Ginger, though homesick, manages to hit it off well with her newfound friends, and this also leads to a madcap chase to get Ginger back, with Darren wanting to profess his love for Ginger, Courtney, Macy, and Dodie finding out that this is all Miranda's and Mipsy's doing, and basically with Noelle, Hoodsy, and Carl trying to get to the Winter Freak Fest. And then all the characters catch up. Courtney, Macy, and Dodie miss Ginger, and now it reveals that Mitzi was also in cahoots with Miranda and Mipsy. Though Mitzi has said that it's been really wonderful getting to know Ginger, and she nonchalantly leaves. Darren professes his love for Ginger, and they kiss. And the episodes end well, and pretty much with a warm feeling in my heart. So overall, these 2, or rather technically 4 episodes, if you count the fact that Far From Home is a 3-parter, managed to be very awesome in their execution of how they managed to develop the relationship between Darren and Ginger, as they start off as best friends / neighbors, and then throughout the later part of the series end up as a couple. And even start to become boyfriend and girlfriend, though have a lot of struggles along the way. And now let's get on to number 8, which is Wicked Game. Now, this episode starts off, or even leaves off, after where Far From Home ends, in which Darren and Ginger become a couple. Everybody is so happy to see Ginger come back to Lucky Junior High, and, well, Macy and Dodie feel rather left off, especially Dodie since she starts to become very clingy and starts acting very bitchy when she notices that Ginger is starting to spend a lot more time with Darren. Macy and Dodie start to get in cahoots with Miranda and Mipsy in order to break up Ginger's relationship with Darren, including phoning Fred, who is, like, once upon a time a friend that Ginger made in Avalanche Arts Academy. The B plot involves, like, Noelle losing her glasses in a card game to the crazy girl, Polly Schuster, who, like I said, is a very crazy girl who is extremely obsessed with birds and parrots. And she leaves it up to Carl to get her glasses back and even like have a little time, sort of a little time with Polly. And Polly proceeds to take Carl in her wings, figuratively, and show her that she has a little world that she likes to play, and it's called Parrot World. And they sort of make it a game out of it, and Blake proceeds to take a lot of photos in order to blackmail, well, Carl into stating that Noelle should no longer be interested in Carl, as he has found someone more likable than him, or likable than her, in the form of Polly. And my gosh, is Blake such an evil little douchebag in trying to break up the awesomeness that is Noelle and Carl together. And so the A plot with Ginger is basically involving that Darren is pretty much at odds with her, and Miranda's and Macy's, Mipsy's, and Dodie's plans seem to go well, which sort of catches the attention of Courtney, who tells Ginger, but Ginger kind of refuses to believe it. And then she brings along Darren, and Courtney has a multi-way phone call to Miranda, Mipsy, Macy, and Dodie of what is the next plan. Macy states that Dodie's such a great actress and trying to impersonate Ginger on the phone with Fred. And, well, when Ginger said, "Thanks, guys," or "Thanks, Courtney," that's all I need to hear. And this leaves Miranda and Mipsy extremely shocked and rather aghast, and leaving Dodie and Macy rather remorseful of what they've done. The episode ends with Ginger trying to find comfort through Darren, and Darren reassuring Ginger that, okay, maybe they've just let it over into their heads into thinking that that she'd end up being slipping away from them. And then the episode ends in a very disquieting manner with Dodie leaving Ginger a voicemail apologizing for everything that has happened. So overall, this episode is rather disquieting, and even though it can be quite melodramatic for some people, it is really much a testament of how envy can be very ugly, especially when you have friends that mean well for you, but have sometimes let their jealousy get the best of them. Like I said, this episode is sad in a rather disquieting way, but has also made me root for Darren and Ginger to really fight for each other, no matter how hard things really are between them. So, yeah, this may be sad, but it has never made me lose hope for Darren and Ginger. At number 7, we have the nurses' strike, in which, the nurses' strike, in which Lois ends up trying to find a job in which she can manage to, help herself and her family, and Ginger sees this sort of trip for best essay for anyone who wants to go to New York, and she's automatically interested in it. And there's a prize money for a sort of parent-child trip to New York, and she thinks it would be a great idea to have her mother along for the ride. Her mom decides that maybe they should form a cleaning company, and Ginger was rather hesitant about it. But once Lois advertises herself as a cleaning lady, here comes one of the most memorable and creepiest scenes in this episode, Miranda's laugh. She spots the flyer, and then she thinks it's going to be a brilliant idea into humiliating Ginger. And then she unleashes such a nasty sounding and really maniacal laugh that's left me pretty much on edge. And it really is a testament of how how much of a versatile voice actress Cree Summer is, and how much lungs of steel this woman has, especially when it comes to making Miranda's laugh really chilling. Miranda basically acts pretty condescending to Ginger, and, well, Ginger tries to assure her mom that maybe it'd be best not to end up in this cleaning business, and then, well, Lois finds out that there is a cleaning duty that they need to do at Courtney's place, which is the perfect opportunity for Miranda to try to make a fool out of Ginger. But the tables turn on Courtney and even on Miranda when Ginger and Lois manage to clean the floor very spotlessly. And even Courtney is shocked that even though she stated that Ginger and Lois missed a spot, she's still so shocked about her reflection. And the episode ends with Lois and Ginger, well, just reminiscing of how much they had a wonderful time in New York and the wonderful sights that they get to see, and they would love to do something like that again, maybe next time. So it really does show the strong bond that Lois and Ginger really have for each other, and it's no wonder why Lois is one of my favorite cartoon moms of all time. She may be tough and firm. She's tough, she's firm, she's kind and well-meaning to her kids, and she's definitely a role model that I really look up to. She's very awesome in her role and trying to really be the one who has to have the roof over her children's shoulders. She's definitely awesome at what she does, and it really shows in this episode. What a well-done episode this really was, and this is an episode that I watch every time that has left a huge smile on my face, especially when it comes to the relationship that Ginger and Lois have as mother and daughter. It's just simply awesome. At number 6, we have Hello Stranger, in which Ginger receives a graduation present from her father, which came too late. Well, she graduated from the 6th grade, but unfortunately, the present from her father Jonas came too late. And after spending some quality time with him, and since there is an upcoming arts contest, she thought it would be a great idea to write a poem about him. The ever-iconic Hello Stranger. The B-plot involves Carl trying to make a sea snake through water through a packet that he purchased, but unfortunately, when he doused it in water, Lois ends up drinking the glass and, well, has to be rushed to the hospital, which means that she can't make it to Ginger's poetry reading night. And, well, let's just say that the main poem that Ginger read that was dedicated to her father, though estranged that he was just really heartfelt, and it really left me in tears. And, well, the main poem really was just awesome. The way she managed to read it with such feeling and with such conviction, yeah, it hit me right here. It hit me right in the heartstrings, and it was just pulled off very beautifully. So yeah, even though Jonas was pretty much estranged from the family, he still has found a piece of his heart through Ginger in this episode. Number 5, we have the Emmy Award-winning episode, And She Was Gone, in which Ginger writes a poem about a young girl who is trying to find herself in the world, but then everybody else has seemed to have disappeared, and everybody else seems to leave her alone, and she becomes her own island. This, unfortunately, makes Miss Zorsky rather alarmed by this turn of events and convinces Ginger that she should seek professional help. And Ginger basically states that she doesn't have any psychological problems whatsoever, even though her psychiatrist might think otherwise. And even people start to buy into this and saying that Ginger is pretty much a depressed little girl. And they think that, oh my goodness, she's got some issues coming up in her life that they really want to know, or they rather not know, for the sake of, okay, this is rather confidential. And, well, this episode manages to show that sometimes well, it really is kind of difficult to really bring out what really makes it tick inside and really brings out that creative flair that Ginger has, especially when writing such really awesome poems as this. And it really shows that yes, Ginger may have a huge talent as a writer, but sometimes some people are kind of concerned about her. Though time and again she assures them that there's nothing wrong, and this episode was really well done because it also brings the topic of depression in this show, because not a lot of shows can even dare try to talk about depression unless it manages to be very respectful and manages to be very much, well, like I said, very respectful and not just well, and also with some type of tact. This episode manages to handle depression with tact and with respect and also with meaning to it. Not to mention the ending credits song was just beautifully well done, and we see copies of the poem being printed, and then we see the puppet of the girl trying to find herself in the world as the poem is being said. So it's no wonder why this episode won an Emmy Award. It has dealt with the topic of depression rather well in such a very well written way, and the poem is totally haunting and a very beautiful type of haunting as well. Number 4, we have Kiss Today Goodbye, and this is in the final season of As Told by Ginger. And, well, basically in this episode, Darren has decided to end up becoming part of the football team as a high schooler. And let me just tell you that this is, well, numbers 4 and 3 are rather very depressing episodes as well, and have left me really sad. With Kiss Today Goodbye, this basically shows the breakup of Ginger and Darren, and it's really tough for me to really talk about this because I've actually rooted for Ginger and Darren to really become a very stable couple, but this also shows them that there's no such thing as happily ever after yet. They still need to sort of patch things with their lives, and this kind of shows that yes, they ended up having very different goals once they reached high school, with Ginger trying to pursue her career more as a writer, and then Darren somehow ending up in the football team. And he even falls for a girl, a cheerleader by the name of Simone, voiced by Erica Luttrell, who is also very well known for her work as Candy from the very underrated Disney cartoon Dave the Barbarian. And, well, Dodie even finds herself in the pep squad and has spotted that Darren and Simone are now in a relationship, and, well, Darren is pretty much cheating on Ginger. And Dodie doesn't want to get herself into trouble with the pep squad, so she instead writes a note to Darren to meet Ginger at the school, and what do you know, comes the saddest part of this episode. Ginger and Darren break up because Darren has ended up seeing another girl, and Ginger is left disheartened by this, despite the many times that they've spent together. Oh boy. This episode has left me with tears in my eyes because it really shows me that Ginger and Darren are pretty much the core foundation of what makes the show strong. And to see that they've ended up breaking up in this episode was rather disheartening and rather made my soul sink. And it was still well done, I'll give you that. And but still, it was quite depressing to watch that it made me feel like I was in a loss for words after this episode. So overall, this episode may be depressing as all get out, but it's still well written. The same thing I could say about the number 3 spot, A Lesson in Tightropes. Yeah, now we're getting to some really heavy stuff, but I guarantee you this probably might as well be the final episode in which I talk about something very heavy. So yeah, after that episode, we see that Ginger has been crying in her room after her breakup with Darren, and she has basically shut herself out until she develops acute appendicitis, and she's immediately rushed to the hospital after her mother notices, and Ginger has her appendix removed, and then she manages to have a visit from Orion, the guy she met from detention, and that she ends up starting to have a sort of thing for him after her sort of breakup with Darren. And, well, he basically is there to comfort her and tell her everything's okay. She needs not worry. He's going to be there for her, especially that of Dodie and Macy. But the one thing that made me kind of ticked about this episode was the other Miss Zorski's and Miranda's reactions when Ginger ended up coming back from the hospital. I thought it was rather mean and heartless of the both of them to not express any sympathy or pity for Ginger. But still, despite that, I thought this episode was quite heart-wrenching because, well, the fact that Ginger managed to develop acute appendicitis after her falling out with Darren was rather heartbreaking and was extremely sad, and, well, just made me feel rather sorry for her that she's had to endure this type of crap that she got herself into, or even the fact that the both of them got themselves into. It's a very sad episode, but despite that, it makes me want to, it just makes me want to tell Ginger, everything's okay, you're strong, push forward, you can do it. And it makes my heart want to go out to her in this particular episode because, well, the fact that she ended up going through this very painful situation in her life, it was just pretty heart-wrenching. And, well, what more can I say? It's just a very well done episode that has made my heart go out to Ginger so much. Number 2, we have the series finale, The Wedding Frame. And let me tell you, this is a very well done series finale. Granted, this did have some questions to reiterate what Patricia from Old School Lane said. Who was Orion and who was Simone? How did they manage to be in the show all throughout? But still, I thought that this series finale was basically the one that really had such a concrete ending. And this also solidified the marriage that Lois had with Dr. Dave. Yes, alongside their promised marriage comes a scheme between Dr. Dave's mother and a prostitute by the name of Nikki Laporte, plus a lot of other women that she manages to be in cahoots with. And I thought this was a really well done episode and a really well done season finale, as Ginger manages to move up in her social life and even in her social status and ends up becoming very wealthy. But unfortunately for Courtney, her father ends up being arrested for money laundering and has ended up being, well, reduced to living poorly as well alongside her family. And it is rather heart-wrenching of Courtney to really go through that phase. And, well, it was really happy of Ginger to end up, well, moving up in her life with her mom and even helping out with the marriage. And at times she's not even so sure of where her relationship is going to be with Darren, if he's going to still end up with Simone, or if she's going to still end up with Orion. And the most fun that I've had with this episode was with this one scene in which Will is done lifting a barbell and is flexing his muscles, and then Darren is still kind of wondering what's he gonna do. He's still feeling for Ginger, he's still feeling for Simone. He's kind of iffy, and then we have Will saying, the question is, how can you not be blinded by your brother's bulging pecs? And I thought to myself, man, Will, he looks so ripped here in this episode. And I kind of had a crush on Will because I don't know, he looked really handsome. He was totally buff, and it's like I was like thinking to myself, dude, here you are flexing your damn muscles and trying to show off how much of an awesomely sculpted body you have, and here's your kid brother Darren, rather unsure of what he's gonna do with his relationship with either Simone or Ginger. But still, it's quite a fun episode that kind of managed to leave a little bit of light in an otherwise sort of heavy sort of season finale. But still, the season finale was still well done, and it managed to leave me a huge smile on my face, especially when Ginger and Darren ended up being back together and, well, ended up reaffirming their love for each other. And it's no wonder why Ginger and Darren are pretty much my favorite couple of all time when it comes to animated shows. And number one, this should be no surprise, people. Butterflies Are Free. The episode that has Ginger graduate from junior high alongside her friends and the people around her. And this is definitely a very wonderful second season, or rather, a really wonderful episode if it would have been the series finale. But still, despite the fact that the wedding frame was the series finale, I have to say that even if this were the season finale, I have to say that it was just so wonderful. It was just so wonderful in its execution. It was so heartfelt. Yes, there was the harsh reality of Carl having to bury his petrified eyeball, Blake's tonsils, and many other precious memorabilia into a time capsule, as stated by Holly Schuster, but still, the main episode was just so well done. It was just wonderful. It was beautiful. It was very beautiful seeing these characters grow, and it makes me laugh, cry, and just reminisce of how far these characters have gone in their lives. So it's no surprise that the number one episode, or my most favorite episode, is Butterflies Are Free. Well, that's all for now for this countdown. I'd like to hear what are your favorite episodes as well. And stay tuned for my review of Avatar: The Last Airbender, one of my most favorite Nicktoons of all time. So until then, see you later, everybody.